I thought it'd be interesting to talk a bit about some of the other projects that that are going on here, because there's so much going on here at Eden itself with the new geothermal and social prescribing and things are taking place here as well now. Do you want to talk a little bit about the social prescribing?
Well, so social prescribing is one of those lovely things that we sort of fell into, if you like, and it started from a really lovely sort of basis that we've always wanted, or we've always liked the idea that this is sort of Cornwall's village hall. So actually later this week we're throwing open the doors for the sort of annual Christmas fair, which has nothing to do with us. It's a number of charities sort of coming together. And in the same way, we've done a bit of work with a COPD group, so chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder, where they were using the site as part of their treatment, and they were getting amazing results. Actually, these are people who've got really real lung difficulties, but they were seeing, the social piece of it as well, but also the actual exercising piece. And so that's grown now into a sort of wider program, which has got those sort of components, but it's got a health and well-being component. It's got a growing sort of component. And this stuff that was sort of seen as, if you like, a bit kind of hippie shit now is in the mainstream as well. And is being researched here as well to show that it has real, positive outcomes on the people that are in it. Oh, and by the way, it costs the NHS less as well, which has got to be a good thing for all of us. So we're really proud of those programs, and I think they fit really nicely in with things like, with the home of the National Wildflower Centre. We've obviously got horticulture, we've got the students that we just talked about. The whole gamut sort of comes together, and it starts to feel of, if you like, one sort of civilization, if you like. Yeah,
but what's so interesting is how it knits so many things together, which is what I always find really fascinating. So, for example, with the sort of health side of things, the NHS is looking a lot at preventative healthcare now. Green infrastructure, which is all the living stuff, all the landscapey green things. We can now add values to that and attribute values to that in terms of healthcare, which is really exciting because it's showing really positive results. But also for areas which are high stress, we know that we can significantly reduce stress in those environments. So in care homes, for example, which have a very high turnover of staff, typically staff are under a lot of pressure. There's been some really interesting studies. I'm going to butcher the figures, but there was something like 300 nurses taken from a range of care homes who had, I think, significant leave over the previous year. And they just weren't turning up for work, they're very stressed. A lot of health issues are related to that. So a project was started to get them to spend 120 minutes in nature. This is where I forget it. I can't remember if it's a week or per day, but either way, it's a decent amount of time outside that a lot of people probably don't, most people probably still don't do that. And after 6 months, 90% had returned to work. After 12 months, I think it was 86% had stayed in work. So there's a huge opportunity to, reevaluate some of these things and think, if you're a care provider, you're not just caring for your residents, you also have a duty of care to your staff. So how do you approach that challenge? And it's all about that bigger ethos behind it all.
And I think the more kind of switched on employers are recognising this. I mean, and often, some of the more switched on ones are the public sector, because we get shot for saying this. We have larger sort of training budgets and this sort of thing where you can invest into it. But we've had people coming here who are looking at things like surf therapy now, as well as to, which sort of brings up a little smile in your mind to start with. It's just a mistake, but actually the results are exactly because you've got cold water immersion, you've got access to the outdoors, and 2 hours per week, I think, was the same sort of thing. And the impact on getting people back to work quicker is definitely right. And it's just that whole area is just fascinating. That the oft said thing about the NHS, which is wonderful, is it's not so much a national health service as a national illness service. At one level. So and what we know is with the pandemic is there is a tsunami of mental health, hitting us. Whether it's anxiety or depression or whatever, and actually schemes like these are going to be really important because we're just not going to have the beds and the spaces available or indeed the amount of therapists that we need. So if we can be part of that, done in the right way, because you've got to have the right checks and balances, then I think it's incredibly exciting. So and it does good for the natural world at the same time. So it feels like a bit of a win-win, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And it's, this is the thing. We need to restore the natural environment, but we also need to restore people.
Yeah.
People have been put down for a long time, and we've kind of gone too far, the wrong way in the way we approach work and things as well. And actually, just reevaluating how we live our lives is really important. And if we can take all of these things together forward together, then again, it's hitting two birds with one stone.
We're seeing the same. Actually, you were mentioning the other projects. So our big project in the north of England is in Morecambe. So Morecambe Bay. Don't know if you know it, but it's this absolute. You've got the Lake District in the background. You've got the fastest tidal bore in Europe, so the water reputedly comes in and out at the speed of a galloping horse, and you don't believe it until you see it, and you go, where did that sea just come from? So, and we were lucky enough to win a People's Lottery grant there for their COVID recovery piece, and the project's called the Bay. It's with the NHS there locally, and the two nature trust, the Wildlife Trust, sorry. And it's trying to do exactly that. It's trying to do social prescription in that area, which is this. It's proper. Can I call it hardcore natural environment? You've got marine, you've got the parkland as well. You've got the lakes in the background, but the putting 3 locations around the bay, so one in Morecambe, one in Barrow, and the other one I think is going into Arnside. Is just a really interesting way of bringing the sort of community together, and at this time where it really needs it. And it's great to see people like the People's Postcode Lottery saying that's something we really want to back, and working with the NHS and so on. And I think the results are going to be brilliant on that, and in a place that really needs it. I mean, one of the reasons we're in Morecambe is that it's the classic British seaside story. Why did we all go to the seaside? When we worked in the mines and the mills and so on, it was to take the air, if you like. I think Morecambe's strapline is beauty surrounds, health abounds.
Yeah.
And then cheap air travel in the 70s and 80s suddenly meant that you didn't have to go to the end of the pier to see a taste of the exotic. You jumped on a plane and off you went. And so the towns, be it Morecambe, but there's plenty of other examples, have sort of withered. But what's also happened is that the people and their health have, if you like, withered. They've got lower educational attainment, they've got lower health and well-being scores. The sort of multiple indices of deprivation are kind of off the scale. All in these coastal communities, why the government had these sort of coastal communities report. That's why we're in Morecambe. But what you see is, we hope to open in 24, probably 25, the way things are going at the moment. But these sort of meanwhile programs, doing things that are happening whilst you're building these projects, brilliant. Because here we couldn't do that because nobody knew it was going to be a success. There you can do your supply chain from day one. You can do your social prescribing, and you actually create this catalytic effect quite quickly.
That's it. Well, some of our colleagues who do a lot of work with children, they get children involved in the building of schemes. It's all about natural play and getting kids involved with the environment. And as part of that process, they get kids involved in model making to come up with ideas and designs and things as well, to get them involved in that sort of design process. But then when it comes to the plants, they do sensory plant workshops, and they get kids smelling and tasting and eating the plants.
Just here, you've got a bit of that in the Mediterranean.
Well, you can smell it as you come through. It's incredible.
So,
it's absolutely amazing atmosphere.
I remember the arguments we had about this. We're in the Mediterranean terrace here in the kitchen, behind the camera, and the horticulturists are doing their nuts, I think, is the phrase about would we wreck the smells of this area. So we've got a very good extraction system over there to make sure we don't, because otherwise you don't get the rosemaries and so on.
That's it, but it really hits you when you come in here. It's really amazing, and it just creates that atmosphere and that calming effect of sort of chilling out and just enjoying, where you are. It's really powerful.
It is, and it's a great space. We're very lucky, and you have the kind of highs and lows, if you like, of a journey around Eden. The rainforest is like the high of the symphony, and this is the moment where you kind of come in and you go, and you won't be able to pick them, but the olive trees that we got here are, roughly 1,000 years old, that we were very lucky to get, and yet they kind of look like they belong. In here, and they give people again that sense, same as the redwoods, of just stopping and saying, "Wow, what are those trees, if you like, seen within their lives?" You know, where are all those civilizations that thought that they'd mastered nature? Oh, they're all gone, aren't they? What's happened to the Egyptians? So, you know, and I think that's the thing for us, is that there's this sort of sense that those societies were all full of people who thought that they understood how the world worked, and yet those civilizations are gone in the lifetime of those redwoods and those sequoias and those olive trees. It's interesting, isn't it?
It is. It's incredible. Well, I was up in Scotland recently. I can't remember where it is now, but with the old yew tree up there, which I think is 5,000 to 7,000 years old, and you just think that it used to be so big that they used to host meetings beneath it, and you just think, my God, what was society like then? You know, it's just incredible that these things have been there for so long, and you know, but we've been custodians of them for so long, and it's only really in our recent history that we've kind of stepped back and lost a lot of that connection of maintaining these ancient places that have such heritage. You know, they're so important. The trees are, you know, it's like the Royal Oak pubs. A lot of people don't realise that the reason they're called the Royal Oak is because
of course.
the king hid in it when he was being chased by the parliamentarians, you know, and you think, oh wow, you know, you don't attribute that really important story to trees necessarily. And
definitely not.